Hey friends, welcome to Leading from Wholeness. I'm Audrey Shelby, a wife, mother, leader, and child of God. I'm here to let you know that your call to leadership was not a mistake. Fear and anxiety don't have to run your life. You have been called by God to lead right where you are. We'll talk about leading with authenticity and power, overcoming barriers that keep us stuck and get in the way of us being effective leaders, and truly rising to the call that God has for us. With tactical strategies such as prayer and reading God's Word, we're going to go deep and grow closer to God. You can lead from a place of freedom and purpose. So grab your journal and your hot chocolate and let's go. Hey there, today we are talking about how it's okay for us as leaders to make mistakes and how to lead with grace and truth. And it's not just about making the mistakes, but really today we're going to talk about how do we feel about ourselves when we make mistakes? What are some of the thought patterns that we have accepted as truth that are impacting us from really experiencing the opportunity of growth when we make mistakes? So we'll do a deep dive into that. I hope y'all are doing good today. I wanted to open up by sharing a review. And really welcome you to, share your reviews. I'll read them on the pod. So this one is from Elswith. And they say, this short 30-minute session truly packed a powerful punch. If you need a reminder that each of us carries leadership in our own unique way, I highly recommend listening. We sometimes forget the impact we have on one another. And the way Audrey broke down the 3 steps along with the examples she shared was not only easy to understand, but also deeply encouraging. Elswith, I thank you so much for taking the time to share your review, your comment. She called the pod fantastic and gave us 5 stars. So thank you so much. If you would like for me to read your review, please go ahead and post those there on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, and wherever you listen to your pods, and then I will be more than happy to read it on air. So awesome. So again, thank you all so much for joining me today. So listen, I think I've talked about this before. One thing I struggle with is perfectionism, right? This idea of needing to be perfect as a leader. And I guess not just as a leader, I think in other areas of my life. And one thing that for me, the challenge that I'm noticing is that what is that perfectionism tied to, right? So it's not just a need to, be the one to excel or get an A on my paper, right? It really is this connection of if I'm perfect and I do everything right, then I will be accepted by others, right? So it's this idea of tying my worth to my performance. I don't know if that resonates with anybody, put your hand up if it does. But if it does, you're not alone. I'm here too. And so this idea of like attaching your value to what you do and what you produce. And so that has been my struggle. So when we talk about dealing with mistakes, for me, it has been a challenge, right? So it's like understanding not just that mistakes are normal, but it's like when you make a mistake, what's happening for you? How do you feel when you make that mistake? Are you beating yourself up? Are you pretending that it didn't happen? Are you trying to avoiding it? Like put your head in the sand, act like it's not happening. Like, is that happening for you? For me, I will tell you that it can be a situation where I try to address it immediately. But what I'm trying to learn to do now is like detach from the mistake, right? You are not what you did. So even if I made a mistake, that doesn't somehow devalue who I am because I messed up on something, right? Workplace, at home, what have you, right? So I'll share a story. I was managing this workforce development program and was really excited about it. We were providing jobs in the community. And part of that included job training. It provided job readiness and then helping with job search and placement for employment. And so a colleague had referred somebody to me, and they were supposed to be running this medical billing program. And it sounded good, sounded really good. I met with the individual, with the team, and they talked about they would do recruiting for the course. They would do the training. They had this curriculum. and that then they would do placement. Externship is what they were offering, an externship afterwards. And so we were really excited about this. And, I went ahead and approved the contract, and it moved forward. And so the company did the marketing. We had probably like 30 people come out and sign up for the program. And so, it was underway. And I was really excited about it. We had a lot of interest from the community. And so about maybe 3 or 4 weeks in, I had some students come to me and they're like, oh, Audrey, we're still waiting on the books. Like, we've been getting these handouts, kind of like copies of pages, but we're still waiting on our books. And I said, okay, no worries. So I met with the instructor and spoke to them, and they said, oh, we're ordering everything. You should have everything soon. And now, mind you, we had already paid them. So I knew the holdup wasn't on our end, right? They had already been paid. So fast forward a couple weeks later, we still don't have books. And so I reach out to the instructor again to say, hey, trying to check on that order. How are you 6 weeks in and the students don't have books? How is the program going? And crickets. There was no response. I couldn't reach them on email. I couldn't reach them by the phone. And essentially they ghosted us, right? Like, after that, one of the classes was canceled. And then there was nothing. And so I'm like, oh, shoot, right? Like, oh, shoot. And so I reach out to my boss and I said, hey, we have a problem. And I explained kind of what had taken place. And now, mind you, this was pretty big, right? Like, I was legit scared. I was like, oh my goodness, I may lose my job. Like, I really thought this could definitely be something that is worth losing my job. And my boss was so, she was very understanding, disappointed, of course, but she was understanding. We kind of walked through, okay, what happened? How did this come about? How did you learn about this organization? So we're kind of walking through all of that. And we talked about, the importance of, extensive vetting of companies and what we needed to do. And so then we were able to kind of talk about, okay, how do we rectify this? Because now we have students who don't have books that they were promised, right? And now they've been in a program that's kind of been halted. And so what we were able to do was we went ahead and purchased those books. We knew what textbook it was supposed to be because we had those copies. So we ordered books for everybody in class. And then I worked with a local community college that had the same program and got everybody registered, and we partnered there, right? So it worked out, but it really was, for me, a huge learning lesson. And I remember just being I just was like, how could I, how did I do this? How did I miss this? And I think sometimes when as leaders, people come to us and they present different ideas and different options. And it's important for us to not go by what we feel like, oh, it felt like it was a really great deal and it sounded great. But it's like, well, hold on now. But what facts do you have? What research did you do? And for me, it was a very humbling experience because I had made a serious mistake, right? And even though I was worried about possibly being written up or losing my job, it needed to happen immediately. Like, somebody needed to know what had happened because of just the sheer impact alone. And so it ended up, thank goodness it worked out. But I think, like, when you think about yourself, when was the last time you made a mistake? What did it look like? What were some of the thoughts that came to your head? And how did you feel? Was it something you addressed immediately? Was it something that you let ruminate in your mind over and over for days and weeks at a time? Like, what did you do? I think for me, I was so worried about letting people down. Like, that was, oh, I don't want to let people down. We said we're going to do this. And so now it really is like, I'm really just shifting to this place of, I'm human and I can make mistakes and it's okay. Right? And not attaching myself to the things that I do. Because if we're doing our work in alignment with being having integrity, upholding things, and being honorable and honest and respectful, even when the mistake comes, we'll rebound from that. Like we really will. The truth of the matter is, it's like, if we want to be innovative as leaders, we have to be willing to take risks, and we have to be willing to make mistakes. And so this program, it was risky, right? It was innovative, right? For what we were doing in terms of going into communities where individuals didn't have access to the services. They didn't have access to training. That wasn't free. Like, all the training had a cost, but we were supplementing these costs to ensure that people had proper training, had access. And no, I couldn't mitigate necessarily unemployment rates or hireability of candidates, but we were very much so willing to take the risk and bet on the community we were working with to ensure that they had a different outcome for their families, right? You don't do that being scared of taking risk. And that for me, really, it was the truth of like, okay, I made this mistake, but I still think we did the right thing. And ultimately, that program was successful. That class of that cohort of folks graduated and they were employed, right? And so it really was a good thing. But for me, I was worried about losing my job. And here's the thing. I think that that's okay. I feel like that is a normal response to when you mess up. It's okay to be scared of reprimand. It's okay to be scared of being written up or termination or retaliation. In Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verse 4, it says, if your boss is angry at you, don't quit. A quiet spirit can overcome even great mistakes. Right? So I didn't come to my boss with the attitude like, oh, how dare they just ghost us and not show up? How dare they do this? No, ma'am. I signed the contract. This falls back on me, right? And so I came very humbly to say, hey, we have a problem. I'm taking responsibility for this problem. And how do we now rectify this so that it can be addressed? Right? So just because I had made a mistake in that moment, it didn't devalue who I was and what I brought to my company. But it was the human side of, I'm not perfect. And there are times where I'm gonna make a mistake, right? And it's not that like somehow because I made a mistake, I failed, right? Or I failed God because I made a mistake. No, you didn't fail God because you made a mistake. You're human, right? The benefit in that was I was willing to take the lesson and to learn, right? And so I think when we have mistakes, we have to try to, examine how we're feeling. What is our thought process when it happens? For some of you, that may not be an issue. You may make a mistake, keep it pushing and go. But for others who may resonate with this idea of, I cannot fail, this idea of it's not acceptable for me to fail, that's what we have to get under. We really have to get under where that comes from. And I think the first step is recognizing that you have that mindset. We're not judging it. Just recognize it of like, why can't I fail? Why is this such of a big issue for me when things don't go my way or they don't go the way I expected them to go? So one is to recognize it. And then two is to get underneath that thought and figure out what is the root cause. Where is that coming from? Where is that thought pattern coming from? Where is that mindset coming from? And oftentimes we don't always have insight, right? Some people, if I ask you, where did this come from? You can tell me exactly what came from this relationship I had, or I have trauma from a previous organization I worked at, or, I had this difficulty with my parents, whatever it is, you probably can identify it. But for others, sometimes it's hard to identify what the root cause is of some of the thought patterns we have. And understand that don't be afraid to take it to God. Don't be afraid that like, oh, I'm thinking this about myself and I don't want to disappoint God. You're not going to disappoint God. So bring it to him and ask him to give you insight into where it came from. Like, what is this? I remember I had this interaction with a colleague and this is a friend of mine and we had, built a good relationship. And so I had ran into him one day at work and, hey, how you doing? And he was really dry. And I was like, okay, maybe he's having a bad day. Maybe the morning is rough. I see him later and same kind of thing. I'm like, oh, how are the kids doing? How's your wife? And the same kind of thing. And I remember going home later And now I'm like overanalyzing. I'm running it through my head. Well, what happened? Did I say the wrong thing? What did I do? All of this. And I was praying about it. I said, God, I don't understand. Like, this is somebody I'm really thought I was good friends with. Like, did I do something wrong? And the Lord revealed to me what I was thinking about that situation. And to me, it was unbeknownst to me. I'm like, is that why I'm taking this so personally? And I was grateful for the revelation because then it helped me to understand that essentially my perspective in that moment was inaccurate, right? I had taken something that felt to me personal, right? I had taken his response to me personally. And God is like, no, this is your perspective and it's not accurate, right? And so I was grateful for the revelation. A few days later, I run into the same colleague at work. And he's like, oh, how you doing? I was going through this and that on that day, but things are better now. You want to go out to lunch? And we go out to lunch, right? So it was like, okay, but it's important for us to understand our mindsets. And oftentimes we don't know. I love how Joyce Meyer says, think about what you're thinking about. How often do we think about what we're thinking about? We don't. I think oftentimes we get a thought and we just take it as truth. And so, if there's something you're trying to understand the root cause of it, pray about it and ask God, hey, where did this mindset come from? Where did this idea that I can't be making mistakes and that I have to be perfect, where did that come from? And he will reveal it to us. He wants us to have understanding. He wants us to have wisdom, and he'll give it to us, right? So that's just one thing I encourage there. When we think about how do we manage mistakes, right? Like, what do we do? Now you've made the mistake. How do you respond? The first thing is don't run from the mistake. I think you need to acknowledge it head on. Try to understand what happened. Definitely for me, I'm more like, okay, I ask a lot of questions. So I'd be trying to understand, okay, well, what exactly happened here? Who was involved? What was it? For me specifically, my background is I'm a social worker, and my background has been in child welfare and leadership roles the entire time. And so in child welfare, which you probably know is foster care, we have to make a lot of decisions that impact children and their families. And so oftentimes I'm very analytical around what happened, what do we do, how do we do this assessment, who do we talk to, very detailed. And so I'm very much a person that asks a lot of questions. So say all that to say, figure out what the mistake is, right? What happened? Acknowledge it. Don't run from it. Just acknowledge it. And then be calm and humble in how you respond. Like, your response to a mistake is critical. Like, we cannot be the leaders who are flying off at the handle, yelling at people, cussing at people, off with their heads kind of a thing. We cannot do that. That cannot be the way we lead, because when we lead from a place of like power and intimidation and leading from a place of fear, that stifles innovation. It stifles community. It stifles growth, and it stifles the creativity that we really want to see so our businesses can be successful, so our companies can be successful, so our teams can be successful. So we really want to respond calm and humbly and seek understanding first. And I think the other part is like, big mistakes can be overcome. Like, I overcame that mistake. I didn't lose my job. I wasn't written up, but it was a huge lesson learned from me. And I was grateful. I was grateful for it. Right. So I want to read this verse to you, which I thought was so like powerful. So this is coming out of 1 John chapter 3, and this verse 16. Now I'm reading it from my Maxwell Leadership Bible, which I love. So I'll read you the scripture, and then I'm going to read you Maxwell's commentary on it, because I felt like it really stood out to me. So I'll read that. We know what real love is because Jesus gave up his life for us. So we also ought to give up our lives for our brothers and sisters. So in Maxwell's commentary, he says this about this scripture. So first he's saying, in this chapter, or this book rather, John insists this is the kind of love we must demonstrate in our actions, not just our words. So not just demonstrating love as like, I love you. You tell people all the time, love you, love you. But how do you demonstrate in your actions? And from a leadership perspective, how are we demonstrating love and how we respond to mistakes? How are we demonstrating love and how we respond to our teammates, right? Whether they make the mistake or we do, how do we respond? He goes on to say, God loves us infinitely beyond what we can understand. And we, his children, are to love him and one another in return. As believers, John suggests, and in particular those who are called to lead, are to be conduits through whom God demonstrates his amazing and undying love. Right? That's a lot. I know it's a little heavy. He then says leaders need to constantly remind themselves that God is love and that he requires his people to share his love with one another and with the outside world. So when we think about being conduits, right, to demonstrate God's love to others, there's a level of responsibility there. There's a huge level of responsibility there. And so for me, I take that to mean that means I need to demonstrate it in everything that I do. Every interaction, right? Every meeting, every situation, every opportunity is a place where I can show and demonstrate God's love, not only just to other people, but also to myself. So when we think about these negative thought patterns, how am I demonstrating love to myself if I'm thinking that somehow I'm a failure because I made a mistake, or if I'm not perfect, I'm not good enough, right? So we have to really be thinking about constantly, which I love that John says, I think constantly about how we are a conduit of God's love, because there is a responsibility upon us to do that. And so I really, really enjoyed that scripture and kind of, how that helps us to frame our mindset when we're in the workplace and we're working around, just working with people and working around challenges and things that we cannot necessarily control, right? So, what does true leadership look like, right? I think true leadership is authentic. It's not having to have all the answers. I think that's where we make mistakes, when we think that we have to have all the answers. Like I've learned in recent years, it's okay for me to be wrong. It's okay for me to be wrong. And at first it was like, oh, but it's like, no, it's okay for me to be wrong. Because if I'm wrong, there's a right answer somewhere else, right? That's an opportunity for somebody else in that moment to shine. That's an opportunity for somebody else in that moment to share their thoughts and their innovations to get us to where we're trying to go, which is the ultimate goal, right? We're trying to meet our outcomes. We're trying to meet performance measures, right? That's the end game. It doesn't matter who brought the idea. And I think we can't get caught up on, I need to be the one with all the answers. I think definitely when we think about leadership, there's a lot of pressure to be right. There's a lot of pressure to know everything. And I think honestly, like real leadership and real humility says, I don't have all the answers, nor do I need to, right? It also takes us out of that place of needing to be perfect. Because if we have to have all the answers, then we're perfect. And none of us is perfect, right? And I think also, like, don't cover up a mistake out of fear of disappointment, because you don't want to disappoint somebody else. It's like, no, be honest. Be honest about what has happened. Address it immediately and then move forward, right? So true leadership really is admitting when we've made a mistake, being vulnerable to say, I am human like everybody else, and I'm going to make mistakes. And then being honest and accountable for what we've done and manage it. If you get written up, that's not what we want, but sometimes that may happen. And it's like, okay, I got to take the L here. This was on me, right? And being open to constantly learning, right? Us being vulnerable to admit that we make mistakes speaks more to the truth about us being human than it does with saying anything about our capacity to lead, right? It's not that you're not a good leader because you make mistakes. No, you're a great leader because you tell the truth about the fact that you've made mistakes and you're being vulnerable. I think that also helps individuals who want to be in the seat that you're in, it gives them a little bit of insight into they could sit in the same seat. Because, oh, if he can do it, if she can do it, and she's made this mistake, but she's holding it gracefully, she's talking about it with the whole team, she's managing it, then maybe I can sit in that seat one day, right? It opens up that idea that, no, this is attainable for anyone. God's grace is on us all differently. You're not going to always be sitting in the seat. I know for some of you that hit hard, you're not going to always be the one sitting in the seat. But while you have the influence, while you have the access, use it for good. Definitely use it for good. I also think when we think about, practically how do we do this? How do we extend grace to ourselves and to others when we make a mistake? I think first it is we need to forgive ourselves. Like, do not sit there ruminating over and over about what you did and thinking negatively about yourself, right? Like, you can't lead well if you're constantly condemning yourself, because then you don't have the security in your ability to lead. And I think the other part is like, we know if we ask God to forgive us, he'll forgive us, right? So if you've given that thing to God, hey, God, I made this mistake, please forgive me, he forgives you. So if God is forgiving you, don't hold yourself to a higher standard and not forgive yourself. You are human, and it's not going to always be right. And sometimes you're going to make mistakes. So I think it's important for us to forgive ourselves and forgive yourself quickly. So that's forgiving ourselves. Second is give yourself grace. So grace isn't permission to be careless, right? We need to do the research. We need to do a deeper dive into things before we make decisions. We need to read through contracts before we agree to them, right? So grace is not a permission to be careless, but it is permission to say it's okay for me to be human and mistakes are a part of my personal growth, period. If you're not making mistakes, you're not growing. Because otherwise, if I don't make the mistake, how do I know what the right thing was to do? Mistakes will show you who you are. It really will. When we talk about pressure, being under pressure and under difficult situations, that shows you what's really inside. So leadership is a journey. It's not a destination, because that journey carries you from everywhere. No matter what company you're at, you're still on your leadership journey. If you've been a leader in 5 different organizations, you're on a journey. It's not about the company, right? Sometimes we get so caught up in, I work for this corporation. I work for a Fortune 500. I work for a Fortune 100 company. Okay, that's nice. And there's a lot of great perks, right? But how are you growing as you're moving from one place to the next? And then lastly, we extend grace to ourselves by remembering who we are, right? You're not your mistake. A mistake is something you did. You yourself are not a mistake. You are God's workmanship, right? We are God's children operating in the earth, showing his love in the roles that we are been called to sit in. This is not just on you to make things happen. God will help you to be successful as you lead, right? Remember that God is for you and he will help you and he's always with you. So that's why you have to remember the truth of who you are, right? You are his workmanship and he's called you to the seat that you're in, and he will help you day in and day out to be successful. Even when you make mistakes, God forgives you and he helps you. And some mistakes are just a mistake. It's not a sin. So it's not like it's something you need to confess. But some stuff, like for me, that was a big deal. It was a big deal. And so for me, I had to learn, like, okay, God, help me slow down. Help me to slow down because I missed it here, right? And it was a normal thing. And now as I move forward, I have a deeper understanding of vetting. I tell you that. Thank goodness. So just remembering that, right? And then tactically, what do you do when you make a mistake? So here's 5 things, right? Acknowledge it quickly. Don't hide it. Don't minimize it. And act like, it's not a big deal. No, it's a big deal. It's okay. Own it, and own it with humility, right? The next thing is bring it to God first. Pray about it. Like if you know you've made a mistake and you're like nervous, like I said earlier, like am I going to lose my job? Am I going to be reprimanded for this? What's going to happen? Bring it to God and say, God, I did this. I don't even know how it happened, but we're here. Help me, right? Help me. How can I learn from this? What did I do wrong? What did I miss here? And the Lord will help you, and He'll show you how to manage it. And He'll also give you insights into, what may have happened to get into that situation. Where did you miss something? Where were you maybe moving too fast? Or where did you not lean on something that God gave you? Sometimes, how you hear people say, oh, I had this feeling. Something wasn't quite right. Or in my stomach, it just didn't feel right. Go with that feeling. Go with that feeling. When you feel like something's off and you can't name it, but you're like, I just feel like I shouldn't make this decision right now. Go with that, because that is God telling you, giving you information. Something's not right. You don't need to make a decision today. You may need to look deeper into this. Go with that first. Now, when we do that and we don't listen, it's okay to go back and say, God, my bad. Like, I did not listen. I had a feeling I shouldn't have taken this, taken on this new opportunity, but for whatever reasons I did. And God's like, well, no, I told you not to do that. That was that sinking feeling you had in your stomach. So try not to ignore that. And if you do, it's okay. Go back and ask God for forgiveness, and He'll forgive you. And then you forgive yourself, right? That takes me to the next point. Extend grace to yourself. Right? Speak to yourself the way God speaks to you. Don't call yourself stupid. Don't call yourself a failure. Don't say, well, how could I be so stupid? How could I do that? No, God doesn't speak to us like that. Don't speak to yourself that way. You replace that shame with the truth. The truth is God loves me. The truth is God put you into that position. The truth is God is with you everywhere you go. Even in the hard stuff, He's there with you. So you replace that shame with the truth. Fourth one, make it right where you can. Apologize. If you need to apologize, apologize. Take responsibility and show that you're committed to growing, and try to fix it. If there is something to fix, fix it, right? So in my situation, how do we rectify it? There's something we have to do, right? It can't just be that this person has ghosted us and now we're just stuck. What can we do? And be open to others giving you suggestions on how to remedy the situation. Again, don't fall into this thing of I need to have all the answers. Be open to listen to your coworkers. Okay, what can we do? How do we address it? And try to make it right. And then lastly, keep showing up. Keep showing up. Don't let one mistake define your leadership, whether it's a big deal or it's a small mistake. Don't let it define who you are. Keep showing up in the space. Show up in the space with your dignity. Show up in the space with pride within yourself, and not in an arrogant pride, but just be proud of, I'm here and I made a mistake, but I'm still showing up, and I believe that I have what I need to lead and to lead well, and mistakes are a part of growth. Like, how many interventions have came out of people making mistakes, right? So we want to keep that. We want to keep a culture of innovation. We want to keep a culture of creativity, and be open to people making mistakes so we can learn something different. If I hadn't gone through what I went through with that contractor, because I didn't have another experience to have it, right? And it taught me a great deal, right? So as we are thinking through this, I want you to reflect on a couple things. What mistake have you been beating yourself up about? What mistake are you literally letting ruminate over and over and over in your head? You can't sleep. You keep coming down to yourself about it. You keep trying to figure out, if I did it this way, if I did it that way, would it have come out in a different way? So I want you to just tap into that. Write it down. Journal it. What happened? And why do you think it keeps sticking with you, right? And then lastly, what would it look like to extend yourself some grace? The same grace that God offers you. What would that look like? Right? There's some stuff that we need to release so we can really embrace peace and lead forward. So that's just what I would encourage you all to do. And I'll say this, remember, it is okay for leaders to make mistakes, right? Some of the best leaders make mistakes, and it's the way that you respond to them that is important. It's not that you made the mistake, it's how do you respond? Bring them to God, extend yourself some grace, and keep leading with the truth and authenticity. And that's how you recover. So I hope this was helpful for you today. Please leave a review, leave a comment. If there's something specific that you would like for me to cover on the pod, please put it in the comments. You also can email me at hello@praywithoutceasingministries.com. Would love to hear your questions. So feel free to shoot us an email, and I'll see you next time. If this episode blessed you today, please share it with a friend. Tag me on social at Audrey T. Shelby. I will see you back here again soon.